Welcome to this explainer. Seriously, take a quick second and just look around you right now. How many things do you see that are made from natural resources? Your desk, the clothes you're wearing, the phone or screen you're literally watching this on, pretty much the whole shebang, right? Our planet generously provides everything we need to build our lives. But to really appreciate that, we've got to understand what actually happens when we consume too much or when we carelessly just throw things away. And that is exactly what we're going to unpack today.
So where does your stuff actually come from? Now really think about the hidden origins of your everyday belongings. We run to the store, tap our cards, bring things home, and use them. It feels super simple. But the story of your stuff is so much bigger, and honestly way more complex than just its brief little stints sitting on a store shelf. So let's trace that story all the way back to the true starting line.
Section 1. Where our stuff originates.
Okay, let's dive into this and break down what we call the linear life cycle. Let's use a standard everyday item, say a plastic toy. First off, natural resources, like oil, literally have to be extracted from the ground. Then, those raw materials are shipped across the globe to a massive factory for manufacturing. Next, the actual product is created, packaged in even more plastic, and shipped all over again. And only then, at step 4, do you finally buy it. The hidden truth here is that massive amounts of energy are burned. We're talking millions of gallons of bunker fuel for cargo ships and billions of gallons of fresh water for processing, long before you even make that purchase. The environmental cost starts way back at step 1.
Which brings us to an absolutely staggering number: 3 times. The extraction of materials from the Earth has tripled in just the past 50 years. Let that sink in for a second. Our modern demand means we're pulling resources out of the ground 3 times faster than we did just a few decades ago. Every single time we make new things from scratch, we deplete more of the Earth's natural resources, from rare earth metals to timber. It's a highly unsustainable pattern of consumption. If we keep extracting at this rate, nature simply takes way too long to replenish what we're taking. And that leads us to the inevitable dark side of all this non-stop extraction and production.
Section 2. The growing waste crisis.
So what exactly happens when we just throw all this stuff away at the end of its life? When carelessly discarded items pile up, they don't just magically disappear into thin air. They end up in massive landfills. And you know, these aren't just harmless mountains of trash sitting quietly in the background. Landfills take up an enormous amount of physical space that could otherwise be thriving natural habitats. Worse, as materials break down, or actually fail to break down, like synthetic plastics that can literally take centuries to decompose, they actively pollute the surrounding soil and groundwater with toxic runoff. Plus, they release highly harmful greenhouse gases, like methane, straight into the atmosphere. It's a direct, ongoing threat to our local environments. And hey, if you think standard household waste is bad, check out this figure: 400 million. That is the amount of heavy metals, toxic sludge, solvents, and other industrial wastes released into the world's waters every single year. 400 million tons. To put that into perspective, that's equivalent to dumping thousands of aircraft carriers worth of toxic material right into our oceans and rivers. This industrial waste is largely a byproduct of manufacturing the very things we consume, and it poses immense dangers to global health and ecosystems if it isn't managed properly. But there's a very specific modern waste crisis that hits much closer to home. Actually, scratch that. It's probably sitting right in your pocket or on your desk right now.
Section 3. The e-waste challenge.
Let's define what we're dealing with here. E-waste refers to discarded electronic devices. Think old phones, outdated laptops, busted TVs. The dual nature of e-waste is kind of fascinating, but it's also deeply problematic. Inside these devices are highly valuable materials, literal precious metals like gold, silver, and copper, but they are mixed right alongside incredibly harmful chemicals like lead and mercury. So the tragic irony is that when we just throw away an old phone, we're simultaneously polluting the earth with toxic chemicals while literally burying valuable resources that we just spent massive amounts of time, energy, and capital extracting in the first place.
It's become such a critical global issue that massive organizations are stepping in. The UN Environment Program, or UNEP, is heavily emphasizing the urgent need for, quote, circular approaches to dealing with electronic goods. They're pointing out that we need entirely new, global efforts to handle these electronics, because our current throwaway method, it's a total dead end for the planet. We simply cannot mine our way out of the demand for modern technology. But here is where we get to the really good news, because there is a brilliant, grand solution to this whole mess.
Section 4. Building a circular economy.
To tackle this crisis head-on, the United Nations established SDG 12. This is the Sustainable Development Goal explicitly dedicated to responsible consumption and production. The crucial point here is that SDG 12 focuses heavily on actionable waste reduction and smart chemical management.
It's essentially a comprehensive blueprint to ensure that everyone, from massive international manufacturing companies all the way down to you sitting at home, uses less, wastes less, and protects the planet.
And this brilliantly illustrates the mindset shift we absolutely have to make. Over on the left side, we have the destructive linear economy. Take resources, make products, and throw them away. That is the exact model that created those 400 million tons of waste we talked about earlier. It's a one-way ticket to environmental depletion. But look over at the right side. This is the circular economy. Make, use, repair, reuse, recycle. Instead of a dead-end street, it replaces destruction with a continuous, sustainable loop. It mimics how nature itself works, where nothing is ever truly wasted.
So here's how this builds into an actionable, everyday cycle. You make a product, you use it, but then, instead of tossing it at the first sign of wear or a tiny cracked screen, you repair it. You reuse it for as long as functionally possible, and when it's totally 100% spent, you recycle those materials to make something entirely new. By designing products from the ground up to last longer and be easily repaired by the consumer, we inherently minimize waste. We drastically cut down on the need to go extract those raw new resources. Which actually brings us to the most empowering part of this entire explainer, you. How do your personal daily habits tie into this massive global sustainability effort?
Section 5. Your superpowers for change.
I want you to think of these 4 steps as your level 1 superpowers. First, reduce. Simply pause and ask yourself, do I really actually need this before you tap to buy? Cutting demand right at the source is incredibly powerful. Second, reuse. Intentionally choose products that are built to last, rather than cheap, single-use items. Third, repair. Learn to fix things rather than instantly discarding them. A simple stitch in a shirt or swapping out a new battery can add years to a product's life. And fourth, recycle. Make sure you're always recycling correctly in your local system so those materials actually make it back into the loop. Adopting these responsible habits is exactly how we shift from that destructive linear economy to a thriving circular one.
At the end of the day, mindful consumption protects our resources and turns everyday communities into powerful forces for change. This isn't just about massive corporations shifting their manufacturing processes, though that's important. It's about the aggregate power of millions of individuals demanding better products and treating them with care. By being mindful of our stuff and understanding the true cost of how we dispose of it, we collectively build a much less wasteful and far more vibrant world.
So, I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought. What will you choose to rescue and reuse today? Will it be an old jacket sitting in the back of your closet? A slightly glitchy phone that really just needs a software update? Or maybe just a simple glass container from the kitchen? The power to change the cycle is literally in your hands the moment this explainer ends. Think about it. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.